Hi, I'm JC Pohl from Teen Truth. Thanks so much for joining us today in this web series. So honored to be here working with Lifetouch, and I hope that you find value in some of the content we're going to cover today. We're going to look at the importance of student resiliency during the COVID crisis, and I really feel that this conversation today is critical for our students and for our school communities. I know that COVID is throwing everything upside down, all right? You've seen your schools closed, your teachers are trying to facilitate classes online, you've got students at home, you've had sports canceled, activities canceled, graduation delayed or canceled, so many things as an educational leader that you're having to deal with. On top of just life in general, I mean, COVID has impacted so much of our life. I mean, not only has school been affected, but weddings have been canceled and funerals are being held virtually. I just saw here in Austin, where I live, that one of the funeral homes is doing drive-through funerals. I mean, just how intense is that to think about? So COVID has affected every aspect of our life. It's a huge challenge that we and our students and our country is facing. And the interesting thing about challenges, the interesting thing about the dark times in our life is, I bet if I were to ask you, and I won't ask you right now, but if I were to ask you to close your eyes right now and think of a dark or challenging time in your life, maybe think of something where you really struggled, I would be willing to bet that during that time in your life that you found growth during that adversity. That adversity or that challenge you faced actually helped you become the person that you are today. You see, when we learn and we grow in life, we don't usually do that on top of the mountains, right? When we're on top of the mountain, it's like we just get to look at the view and enjoy the breeze. But it's when we're in the mud and the muck, in the valleys, when we're climbing up the mountain, where we build our muscles, we build our ability to keep climbing, right? We build that strength. And I think the COVID crisis, as well as other challenges in our life, is a very similar opportunity. You know, the interesting thing about Teen Truth, for those of you that don't know what Teen Truth is, we were actually born as a creative response to the Columbine high school shooting. When that tragedy happened, we were just young filmmakers living in Los Angeles at the time, and we really felt as we watched the news and we watched the coverage that no one was giving kids a voice around the issue. And we really thought that students had something to say about it. And so long story short is we ended up giving 5 kids cameras and asking them to film for an entire school year after Columbine. And these 5 students, they worked their butt off. They shot almost 100 hours of footage, which we were able to put together into our first film, a 20-minute film called Teen Truth, Bullying and School Violence. This film premiered in 2006, and it went on to break records for our distributor. It became one of the top-selling anti-bully films in the country. And the reason I believe that this film became so successful is because we never set out to tell students what to do, right? We know people tell them what to do all the time. We just set out to give them a voice and ask them to talk about some of the issues and the things that they're dealing with in life. Because of the success of the bully film, we got to go on and make a film on drugs and alcohol abuse, body image and self-esteem, and we actually made a 4th film on parenting, all right, where we actually gave kids cameras to tell parents how to be better parents, to tell families how to be stronger families. And now, for the last 15 years, we've been on the road, visiting schools, middle schools and high schools, hosting assemblies and leadership summits, all around this idea of giving students a voice. And as you can imagine, just like I talked about in your life or here in this COVID crisis, students that we meet on the road are dealing with challenging things in their life. You know, I've had the opportunity as a speaker to sit with those students who are thinking of suicide because of the way people are treating them at school or on social media. I've had the opportunity and privilege to sit with students who show me the scars on their arm of how they're cutting themselves because of the pain that they feel or the pressures that they're going through at home. And of course, I've been brought into those schools where there's infighting amongst the staff and the culture is just like not doing well. And I've been expected to help them turn around that culture and turn around their students. And for me as a speaker, this was kind of really difficult for me because, like I mentioned in the beginning, when Columbine happened, I was just like a filmmaker living in LA, all right? Like I went to school for marketing, okay? I had one goal in life, and that was to work for Disney, all right? That's really all I cared about at that time. But Columbine changed my path. That tragedy, if you think about it, changed America forever. It changed the way we look at education. It changed the way we look at school culture. It changed the way we look at bullying and school violence and all those things that were happening before Columbine. But that event really changed our path. And I believe that the COVID crisis is a very unique opportunity for you to help change the path of your students, to help them be more resilient. And as I met students on the road that were dealing with these challenges, that was hard for me. So I put the brakes on everything many years back, and I applied to Texas State to get my master's in professional counseling. And it took me about 5 or 6 years to get through the program, but now I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I have a small private practice here in Austin where I live in Texas. And I've come to love counseling and working with students as well as adults who are dealing with adversity. And there's one key concept that I've really come to believe as a counselor and as someone working with students every day is that we need to help people be more resilient. We all deal with challenges, we all deal with hard times, and if we can be resilient during those times, we can find growth. We can find new opportunities. And so I was able to take some of the experiences on the road and my time as a counselor and put them together into a book called Building Resilient Students from the Inside Out. And in this book, we looked at 5 keys to mental health. We looked at the concept of charismatic adults, how adults can speak into the heart of students at just the right time. We looked at the idea of true connections and how face-to-face relationships are just so important for us and for our students. We're even starting to feel some of that pressure now. I don't know if you are, but being at home, you're probably craving that face-to-face connection right now. We talked in the book about how students are not alone in the feelings and the problems and the challenges that they're facing. They're not the only ones who have dealt with those challenges. We talk about solution-focused thinking, the idea of overcoming our problems through solution-focused thinking, and of course, self-efficacy. The idea that we can accomplish what we believe we can accomplish. We can be who we believe we can be. And so we're only together for a short time since Lifetouch has brought us together for this short web series. So I wanted to dive into 2 of these keys to mental health because I think these 2 keys can help you build student resiliency and help you find amazing opportunity in this crisis. I honestly believe the more I sit back and think about this, and the more I shoot videos like this for our clients and for educators, is that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity that has been given to us as educators, all right? Once in a lifetime opportunity. And your ability as a charismatic adult and the charismatic adults on your campus and on your staff to speak into the students' hearts could be game changers for the students in your school. And so I want to dig in deeply right now into the concept of charismatic adults. The reason why I chose to focus on this in the book and why it's really foundational in my work when it comes to student resiliency is because there's been a ton of research around it. I want to introduce you right now to Dr. Robert Brooks. Okay, Dr. Brooks is an expert on student resiliency. He has dedicated his life to this topic. He has traveled the world speaking on this topic, and he's done a ton of research on student resiliency. And he's found in his research that the single greatest factor in building resilient students is charismatic adults. An adult during a student's growing years that can speak into their heart at just the right time, that can hear the problems and the feelings that the student is going through and offer that advice, offer that input, offer that inspiration at just the right time to help switch that student's path. I'm sure you can think of charismatic adults in your life. Maybe it was someone from your family, like an aunt or a grandparent or an uncle. Maybe it was someone from your neighborhood, like a neighbor down the street. Maybe it was someone from church or the Boys and Girls Club. Maybe it was a teacher. Maybe it was a coach. I want to invite you right now, just for a moment. Just follow me just for a second. I want to invite you to just close your eyes. I'll do it with you. Just close your eyes just for a moment. Think about your growing years. Maybe middle school, high school, maybe even your time in college. And just think, was there an adult who spoke into your heart at just the right time? What did they say? How did they switch your path? You can open your eyes now. Hopefully you thought of someone. how did this person turn you into the leader that you are today? How did they impact your life? For me growing up, it was my football coaches. This is Coach Medina and Coach Weller. I loved high school. It hurts me so much when I meet students and adults who hated their school experience. But these two guys right here had a huge impact on my life. I spent day after day with them, training during the summer, playing football in the fall, just through student life, right? And I had a great relationship with my parents. My parents were both teachers, so you can imagine the type of people they were. They were very involved in my life growing up. But when you're a high school boy or girl, when I was a high school boy, there were just certain things that I felt more comfortable talking to my coach about than my dad. Going to Coach Weller about something or going to Coach Medina for advice during a challenging time sometimes was just a little better for me than maybe going to my dad, because they could speak to me at a different level than maybe he could. And I believe the adults on your campus and the staff and the coaches and the people working with your students have a very unique opportunity right now to be that charismatic adult for your students. Okay, we know that they are going through challenges right now. They are dealing with struggles, they were dealing with pain, they have had events and hopes and dreams canceled on them. But for us to step in and help them work through that, for us to step in and give them support, I believe could be a game changer, not only for your school culture or their experience during COVID, but also for them long term. I want to introduce you to another book. Now, I really think my book I wrote is great, but this book right here, The Self-Driven Child, is a game changer. It is by far one of the best books I've ever read. I recommend it to every adult, parent, teacher, principal, everyone I come in contact with. In fact, I love the book so much that I reached out to the authors. I told them about what I do with Teen Truth, and they sent me about 50 copies that I give out to clients that I feel that the book can really impact. And in the book, Dr. Strixrud and Ned Johnson, they take a deep look into how to build self-driven children, I should say, sorry. And one of the concepts that I want to introduce you to right now that they lay out in the book is the concept of the consultant model. I love this idea. Think about a consultant. Think about maybe an educational consultant you've hired, okay? Maybe think of a business consultant. Maybe some of your friends are business consultants, or maybe you know someone who's like a sales consultant, okay? A good consultant doesn't walk in and tell people what to do. I know as an educational leader, as a teacher, as a parent, we don't try to tell people what to do, but we are in more of a directive relationship with them, right? Like we're enforcing rules, we're teaching lesson plans, we are, for lack of a better term, kind of telling them what to do, right? Well, what Dr. Strixrud and Ned look at in the book is what would change if we were more of a consultant and we asked them questions on what to do. And we engage them like a consultant would. A consultant would ask questions, they would start to understand the landscape, they would offer advice, they would give information, but they would make sure that they ask the questions and kind of come to that understanding with their client together. So there's 3 key elements to this consultant model that I think are really valuable for you during this time when it comes to building resilient students. So the first kind of concept that they introduced around this consultant model is the student who is unconsciously incompetent, okay? You've worked with these students before. They are unconsciously incompetent. This is a student that you've met. It's like, oh, they're fine. Everything's cool. They don't need to blank. They've got this, right? Like they don't need to practice, they don't need to study, they don't need to go to class, they're cool, everything's good. And you know as well as I know, when they show up to take the test, they fail. When they show up to play the game, they lose. When they hit those challenges in life, they hit a wall. And that consequence forces the unconsciously incompetent student to become consciously incompetent, which is kind of the second step of the process that Ned and Bill lay out in their book. What is a consciously incompetent student? Well, that's a student that has come to the realization now of like, wow, That was a lot harder than I thought. Whatever it might be, my teacher was right, my coach was right. I thought I was prepared, but I really wasn't. So now I'm aware that I'm incompetent. Many of your students might be struggling to reach this. But where do we want to get students to? Well, step 3, I think, is beautiful, and it speaks so well to student resiliency. We want to get our students to the point where they're consciously competent, where they can say to themselves, I've done the work and I will be fine. I've got this. I can pass the test. I can win the game. I can overcome the challenge. And so why is this so important right now during COVID? Is we've been given this once in a lifetime opportunity where students are hitting that brick wall, where they're failing at certain aspects of life because we've been put in such a crazy situation. This is the opportunity for you to consult and help your students as that charismatic adult, help them become consciously competent. Give them the skills to say, I've got this, I've done the work, I'll be fine. We've been given this little 2 or 3 month window that is simply amazing to allow students to make that personal choice to overcome those problems. You know as well as I know, students tend to get focused on problems. That's where teenagers are at, and I would argue that's developmentally appropriate for them. We want to help move them to that solution-focused mindset though, right? We've heard of growth mindset, and I love that concept, but as a counselor, the thing that I've been really attracted to and what I focused on in the book that I wrote is the idea of solution-focused thinking. Now, I didn't really know this concept until I went to Texas State, but it is an entire model from which counselors counsel. And I won't go deep into the model, but what I will tell you is when I am counseling someone, when they're sitting on that couch in front of me, whether it's a couple in conflict, whether it's an adult going through crisis, whether it's a student dealing with challenges, I want to hear their problem, okay? I want to understand their feelings. I want insight into their life. But what I really want to do as a counselor is get them focused on solutions. I want to be that consultant, asking them the questions to help them work through the problem. And once I've found that I can change the conversation in session and get my clients talking about solutions and brainstorming and working through the problem, that's when the momentum changes. That's when the energy changes. That's when they start getting excited to come back to counseling every week because we have the opportunity to brainstorm on solutions, which gives them hope. Your students are no different. That's what we love to focus on. You know, with Teen Truth, we do a ton of leadership summits. We bring student leaders in, we ask them what the problems are, and we ask them to think about solutions. In fact, let me just show you a really quick 1-minute clip of students working on solutions for their school. Check this out. The reason why you were invited here today is because we really want to hear from you. We want to know what's going on here on this campus. We cannot act with compassion today if we don't know what's going on.
All right, the first one we have here is expectations.
Mine is stress.
And there's anxiety where it feels like the world is crumbling away from you.
Like, no matter what's going on, you shouldn't have to feel just sad all the time.
We're going to get back into our groups and we're going to brainstorm on the activities that we can do to alleviate your top 3 challenges. This is where the work gets done.
So we had the idea of an activities fair.
Everybody writes messages and hides them around the school.
You walk around the cafeteria during lunch, tell 3 people a compliment.
These are the ideas that you've come up with to solve these issues on campus. This is what student leadership is about. Now, I know that's just a short clip, and it's obviously a clip of students working at school, which we can't do right now. But I think it's a great example of students figuring out the problems on campus and coming up with tangible solutions. Well, right now is no different. Your experience with your students, the work that your teachers are doing, your staff is doing, is no different. We've just got to do it virtually. But there is no reason you can't pull up a whiteboard behind you. I did it with one of my therapy clients just yesterday. I pulled a whiteboard behind I was on a video call. I pulled it behind my computer. I said, all right, what are all the problems? We wrote down all the problems. I drew a line and I said, okay, let's talk about solutions now. What are the solutions? You can do this with your students right now. Get them engaged in solution-focused thinking. The problems might be a little bit different, They might be the same as well. Students are still feeling anxiety. They're still feeling depression. They're still feeling isolated. They're still feeling disconnected. They're dealing with other issues with their siblings and their parents now at home or other challenges. Get together with your students. Have this conversation. What are the problems? What are the solutions? And I believe if we can do that, if we can facilitate this conversation right now, we can build resilient students. We can make them, like Ned and Bill said, we can make them consciously competent as they head through life. And that is what student resiliency is all about. And so in closing, I want to thank you so much for coming here and watching this program. I really am excited about engaging and interacting with you. We wanted to offer you a few free gifts for taking the time to come out here. The first is, if you enjoyed this conversation about student voice and kind of student leadership, I want to invite you to a free program that we created to help support your distance learning efforts. If you go to teentruth.net/365, again, I'm sorry, that's teentruth.net/365. You will find free virtual assemblies that our speakers have created for you on topics like mental health, student leadership, social media. And if you are interested in booking one of our speakers to go on to an interactive video call with your students to have this type of conversation, our speakers are available to support you on that as well. Additionally, I wanted to offer just a free gift to you as an educator. I know that if you came to this event, you care about student resiliency, you care about your students deeply. So I just wanted to offer you a free gift. If you go to teentruth.net/resilient students, all right, see that slash right there, teentruth.net/resilient students, you can enter your email and download the first few chapters of my Resilient Students book. This is completely free, no strings attached. Go to that website, you can download it. And the reason I feel these first few chapters are so important is because these are the chapters where we really focus on the concept of charismatic adults. We go in deep conversation into what they are and why charismatic adults are so important in building student resilience. And so that is just a free gift for you. I know that Lifetouch is going to have other resources and opportunities available for you. Just know that we here at Lifetouch and Teen Truth, we are rooting for you. We want to support you. And we believe that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to build resilient students. Thanks so much for your time. I look forward to interacting with you and supporting you as much as I can.